on this computer. All right, so we're about to start taking questions on the robot game rules and the table this year and whatever else might come up. I'm Drew, one of the program delivery partners. We have Jamie, the first senior mentor as well. And we are just here taking questions. So I think we have our first question.
Yes, with this is my first year doing it with the Lego League. So the robot games, the robot is to totally be autonomous, right?
Yes.
And it's to complete as many missions as possible, right?
Yes. In the 2 minutes and 30 seconds, as many as you can.
Okay.
As many as you can set up and have running.
And I'll add a little bit to that because I don't think the rules do a very good job of illustrating this. When we say do everything autonomously, it does not have to be one program because the robot is allowed to come back to the home area and you can select another program on your robot. So if there's 15 missions, you could have 15 programs on the robot, have it, do program 1, go out, do it, come back, do program 5, go out, do it, come back. When we say autonomous, it just means you can't use any remote controls on it, but you can absolutely break it up into multiple runs where it leaves and comes back.
Okay, and will the students be asked questions about the robot design?
During their robot design judging, they will. That's one of their judged areas. And in not next week, but the week after, we have a session planned to go over robot judging and to address all that. But during when they're on the table doing missions, they are not going to be asked about how they did anything.
Okay, good. Okay.
So the only thing that they've added this year is the gracious professionalism while they're getting judged at the robot table. So if we're in person, that is basically like showing is the team supportive of each other? Are they fighting with each other? And so, we've seen, examples in the past where somebody gets mad and hits the table because it didn't work. And we're just kind of looking for sportsmanship and encouragement and everybody supporting each other, not just kind of, you don't want to encourage, letting that frustration out on other people and the table or the robot and those kind of things. So it's just trying to encourage a supportive environment.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got the field shared up here just to kind of show anybody who might be watching, just kind of as a reminder. So you've got this red outline for your home area, and you've got this yellow outline for the launch area. So what happens in a mission for all of our new participants is the students will ready up their robot, anything it's going to carry, and everything has to fit in this quarter circle. And then the announcers will go 3, 2, 1, Lego, you'll push go. The robot will leave that quarter circle, go out, do whatever its first program tells it to do, and then has to come back anywhere in this dotted red line. So this big black rectangle or this quarter circle is all home. And once the robot is in there, the kids can touch it again, do whatever they want to it, select another program. And then when they're ready to send it out again, you put it back in that quarter circle, press go, and then it goes again. And you can do that as many or as few times as you want within that 2.5 minutes. And it's a case of, some teams are very much one program to do one mission. If you have time to do that, by all means, go ahead. But a lot of teams find that it's not really time effective for them to say one program to do one mission. So they try to say, okay, go out and do 2 or 3 missions before it comes back. And so one program will do multiple things. But you could do it as one program. You could do it as, 15, 20 programs. The only rule there is it has to start in that quarter circle and come back to the rectangle or the quarter circle and be completely in that area.
And maybe one thing, I don't know if it's was in quite as clear in there this year or before, is that you can have two team members at the table at one time, and then you can basically kind of tag out. So if you got 8 team members on the team, you could tag out another person and all 8 have a chance to run a mission, or you can just have 2 run the whole mission by themselves. So you get a little bit of choice of how you want to run those missions and who gets to run those missions. So you can only have 2 at the table at one time.
And every team is guaranteed at least 3 matches. And it doesn't have to be the same students for all 3 matches. If you've got 3 pairs of students, you say you guys go match 1, you go match 2, you go match 3. That's fine. The way our matches work, and again, this is especially useful information for newcomers, is it's not saying that you are doing 3 matches and getting a record. What we look for is we look at, out of all 3 times, what was your high score? And so your high score is what sticks with you. So if you get there first thing in the morning and you do your first round and you get, you did in practice, said, hey, in practice, we can get 300 points, and match 1, you get 300 points. That is your high score for the day. You can do whatever you want with the other 2 matches. If you have a program where you're like, hey, we've never been able to get this to work at home before, maybe now's our time to try it. You've got that opportunity to maybe try something that hasn't been working yet. And I think, Jamie, you might have run into this before.
Yes. Yep. If you get so fortunate to get your highest score, I've had it before. I've given it to some other team members that have never gotten to run the robot game, and just let them say, just go have fun. If it works, it works. It don't works. And it turned into one of the funniest activities that we ever had, because we had two of our team members that didn't even know where to put the robot. They knew kind of a little bit of stuff, but they didn't know everything. And so they kept hitting running the wrong mission. And it was just a fun time, because we got lucky enough that we got our first run, that first run, and it was done. So we just had some fun and got some other people to get experience. And I've been on the other side too, where we haven't gotten any of those runs, and we're down to the last run, and if we don't get a good one, we've definitely, everybody's going to be upset. So it's been on both sides of that turn.
And I don't love opening old wounds, but Jamie, is it possible to get your high score in the practice round?
No. And no matter what you do to bargain to give up that to ask for the keep your practice round, it doesn't work.
Yeah, so every team, in addition to their competition rounds, does get a practice round. So they get an opportunity to kind of, if they're using light and color sensors, to acclimate to the environment, or to kind of get used to the table if there might be slight variations from what they're expecting. They do get a practice run. Unfortunately, your score in your practice run does not count. So if you get your high score in your practice run, you just better keep going at it and hope you get that score at a competition round later in the day.
I guess maybe some things that I would just mention that I've seen and over time is the 12-inch rule, and coming into the small inspection area. That small inspection area, I think Drew was about to highlight, or he's bringing it up, is it's got a 12-inch height limit, but now once you pass that inspection, you can go and launch, and you can be as tall as you need to be. So it's only during that inspection. So everything's got to fit in that small inspection area. And then after that, you can be as tall as you want to inside of launch. And another one that would be, and I was trying to remember the rule, but cargo, and what cargo means is usually a common rule. And I was trying to remember which rule is rule 18. 17, 18, and 19. Those can always be kind of a weird for people. So cargo means, like, if I take one of those, one of the gray containers, and I put it in an arm on my robot, that's considered to be cargo. And so when I launch that cargo is part of that attachment. And if I stop it and interrupt it, I can pick the robot up, attachment still there, and attachment still holding the cargo. I can bring that back. I still get a penalty for it, but I don't lose the cargo in that case. If I drive out and my attachment falls off and the cargo and attachment are still there, that has to just stay there as it is. So it's not, you can, it's part of that stranded cargo now. So you wouldn't be able to get it back in that case. So that one's kind of seen that happen a few times, different
And
places.
And Jamie, I do want to point out that we do have in the robot game updates from the August 17th, they do clarify Rule 19 on stranded cargo. So that is one of the, I believe, 7 updates we've received so far. Update number 6 is about Rule 19. And so they changed the wording on the rule. So if you look in the robot game rules at the wording on Rule 19, this is how it was when it was originally written. And then they have changed it up in the robot game updates to make it a little bit more clear.
And then another common one I would see is the black line. It's not nearly as much of an issue now the way they've changed the field, but the black line, you have to be completely in. So that means that that black line extends forever vertically. And so when you launch at the beginning, you have to be inside that black line with everything attached to your robot, attachments, the robot cargo, everything has to be inside that vertical line. It can't be sticking out over it. So
now if it is on the line, that's good for us. You cannot extend past the line.
And this year's mat's much better. They used to have all the logos outside, and so there was like a double little section there, and it always confused everybody.
So I think a good thing for us to kind of talk about, just to kind of go through the rule book, just to kind of point out where things are and where you can find things. And then Jamie, you can stop me if I gloss over anything. We start out, we talk about the field a little bit. We get a nice overview of it with everything labeled with their mission numbers. This page, if you have not built your mission models yet, gives you a good outline for that, what goes where and what's in what bags. The next page goes into field setup. So where to put everything on the table, which side of the table is east, which side is south. What do the tables look like here? And this might be a good thing to bring up, Jamie, is that when you go to a competition, it's not just one table, it's actually 2 tables back to back, and it's actually you and another team running a match at the same time. If you want to talk about that.
And that's generally just it's just the main thing for, I think, as far as when they come to competition, is it causes a little bit more distraction and things are not quite as it is when it's set up at their home. So you can usually always expect to have a little bit less score that first time because there's a little bit of nerves. They're waiting on the referee to call it out. They know that it's about to set up for a competition. The other team may be cheering, or you maybe get distracted by what they're doing and forget what you were doing. So you do want to try and practice a little bit of that kind of situation just to get them used to set up a timer, make them wait till you say 3, 2, 1, Lego. I like to have their teammates cheer so that they can kind of make it loud and a little bit distracting, and just kind of get them a little used to that environment before they get there and get shocked by it.
But it is important to know that even though there is another team running at the same time as you, you are not competing against that team in your match. You are just trying to get the most points possible. And one of the missions actually relies on you doing some cooperation with that team. So looking through, some of the models are attached to the mat with dual lock, which comes with your kit. You'll start the match with some things in your home area, including the turbine blade, the platooning truck, 6 container pieces, the package, and 3 gray containers. Some of the models are on the mat, not fastened with dual lock. They're just there loose. And then you've got the precision tokens. So this part of the rule book is just kind of going through how do you set up the table. And we also go through some of that in the video series we put out earlier in the fall. Then we've got a section that talks about just the missions. How do you get points on each mission? What are the things to worry about? Jamie, I want to ask you this because I don't have a lot of experience with this one. What is your experience as a coach with the innovation project model? What are some ways that your teams have approached that?
I've had some teams that just have gone just independent, just made something that would meet the requirement for what the rules are, that it just has to be 4 studs. So they've made just a rectangle in that sense. But some of the most fun ones that are more interesting for everybody is when they kind of relate it to their project in some way. So I had one team that kind of just made a white Lego model of their project, and that was really, really cool to see. And they brought it in for judging and talked about it. So you can go both ways. I don't know that it's really going to hurt you either way, but it's nice to see if your Lego, your innovation project model does kind of match your innovation project. I think that's kind of neat to see. And I think judges probably like that if you bring attention to it.
And one thing that some teams kind of miss the mark on is that your innovation project model is something that your team brings to the table. Like you've built this ahead of time, which means it counts as equipment. So any rules that apply to equipment apply to your innovation project model. Any rules that apply to mission models do not apply to this. So just scrolling through again, we got our missions. One of the things, and the rules will say this later, is when you read about what the missions are, it's very important to read what the rules say and to not read what the rules don't say. So they are very specific and they are intentionally specific. I did the math on this the other day, and I believe, Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, because you were there for this. If you get to the table, set your robot down, pass the inspection, and then do nothing for the whole match, you could walk away with 80 points.
I believe that was right. And there, I don't know if in one of the links that Drew sent out in an email, it has a score that first is released. And that one's really cool because you can set it up and it will tell you what your points are based off what, when you go down the mat and saying, yes, this is scored or this is not scored. You can kind of play with those things, which is great for your students to be able to get an idea of strategy. They could go there and say, well, if we get this, this, and this, we're looking at, we could probably get this many points. And so it's really good to help you with your strategy. And that's also important to know, like, how much do I get to start with? So if I do interrupt, how much am I going to start losing?
So looking at the rules, the inspection bonus is worth 20 points, and you get that just for fitting all your equipment in the small area. You also can earn, I believe the next one is the large delivery. You get 10 points if the chicken stays where it is. So the chicken statue actually starts in its scoring position. And if you don't mess with it, you just get those points. So that's another 10 points. And then the precision tokens are worth 50 points. So if you don't interrupt your robot illegally, you get another 50 points. So that's 10, 20, and 50. So 80 points on the table if you fit in the small inspection area and then just don't do anything. So that's kind of nice to know. Now you can lose those points, but if you fit in the small inspection area, you are guaranteed 20 points. And my favorite thing they added this year is the precision token. If you touch the robot one time illegally, it doesn't count against you. It's kind of like one free touch, like, hey, you forgot, it's okay. Jamie, is there anything you want to add about just the missions?
I think you just looking at those examples and those rules are very important, just so that you don't get surprised when you get to competition about things. And always keep checking for the updates, because right now we've only had the one in August, but if they get the first qualifiers going through, those first qualifiers, those updates will start coming a lot more quickly, because there's any issues that arise from a competition will help feed that update being changed throughout the competition. By state, you're probably not going to see many happening, but by that first qualifiers, there may be a lot of updates. If something's kind of showing up that nobody really foresaw that this was going to be a problem, those updates will be out there pretty much to clarify.
Yeah,
And I
I really
think
like.
partly, so sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say I really like update 7 here to illustrate this point because in the home delivery mission they talk about if it's partly on the doorstep or completely on the doorstep, it's worth 20 or 30 points. But this example here in the middle on the challenge updates, they don't show this in the original rules. So this was a really important update for them to release because it shows that just because the package isn't touching the ground doesn't mean it's completely on the doorstep. So these are the kind of things you'll get in your challenge updates. And if you're reading those, you won't be surprised when you get to competition, the referee says, oh, well, actually that doesn't count because this update was released 2 weeks ago.
And I would say that's the thing that would cause you the most frustration is that you think you're going to get points for something, and it turns out that got changed with a challenge update, or you didn't you thought it was this way and wasn't that way. So it's very important to look at those scoring examples and know what you're going to get. I think that helps you not get nearly as surprised by a score or frustrated if it happens during the competition.
And then Jamie mentioned this earlier. The new thing this year is your gracious professionalism is getting graded at the table. Now, this does not impact your robot score on the table. It doesn't count your missions, but it does get factored into your judging. And we'll talk more about judging in the judging webinar in 2 weeks. But when you come to the table, you're going to get graded a 2, 3, or a 4 on your gracious professionalism every match. You're going to start the match at a 3. If the referees see, hey, you're exhibiting some negative behaviors that we don't really want to see, you can get bumped down to a 2. And if your team is exhibiting just really, really great core values, really great gracious professionalism, then the referees can bump you up to a 4. The next section of the rules is the rules, and I always try to highlight this to new coaches especially because and Jamie, you've probably seen this too. One of the biggest things that teams will do, both coaches and students, is they will come in having only watched the mission scoring video or have only read the mission rules. But there's this whole section of rules about the robot and how you're allowed to play the game that a lot of coaches and students will not read, will not know about. And then they'll be surprised when the referee says, hey, you can't do that. Some of the big things, like when we were talking about, the robot has to start in the launch area. The robot has to come back to the home area. Things like that aren't in the missions. They're in the rules. Jamie, you want to add anything to these?
I just think for most coaches, and even when myself started, it can be overwhelming, all the different rules and all the things that are going on. So one thing that when I didn't start, we didn't have nearly the mentorship that we have, I think now that we're developing and keep getting better and better at. So feel free to reach out. I know we had talked about maybe doing a little bit like what we did for the scrimmages, where you can kind of send in a video. We can give you update and feedback about those kind of rules before you ever get to competition. So that way you're not getting there and get surprised by a rule that you didn't read or realize that that's what that meant. And if you're like me, I read it, but it still doesn't always make sense until you actually have seen it and been at a competition and gone through it a couple of times to know, oh, that's what they're meaning by that. So that first coaches meeting I went to, they were asking us like questions, and like, I'm not sure I know what to ask because I'm not sure that I know. I've read this and I think I know, but I may not know for sure. So some of the things we're working on is trying to help you get through those little jitters or anything that might be a mistake or misstep. And hopefully we can do the scrimmage videos and get to watch one of your runs and give you feedback before you ever get to competition, so it doesn't hurt your score there. We can help you before you ever get there.
And I would say that this page, the definitions and rules, is one of the most important pages in the rule book because it brings up a lot of the rules that are very specific in First LEGO League Challenge. Rule 23, direct wording. The robot game text means exactly what it says and only what it says. So if it doesn't say you have to do something to get the points, you don't have to do that. And then information ranking. This one is super important. That basically if two sources of information disagree, which source do you go by? And it's always the most recent robot game updates have the highest authority, then the missions, then the rules, then the field setup. And so what may be counterintuitive is that things like emails from me every week, videos of like this call being recorded, the videos we put out earlier, none of those are official information. So if anything in any of these videos disagrees with what's actually in the documents, you go by the documents. Obviously, we do our best to make sure that what we're saying is what the rules are saying. But this is also another one gets people, is that if the picture and the text are different, go by what the text says. Pictures can lie to you. One thing I do like with First Lego League is Rule 25, benefit of the doubt. In First Lego League, we don't say something is too close to call. If it is too close to call, whichever way is the best help to the team, that's the way it goes. So if we're looking at the lines like, man, that launch is really close to the line, it's too close to call, it's okay, it's good. Or, hey, you have to get this exactly in this spot to get the points. I can't tell if it's exactly on it. If you can't tell, it's good enough for the kids to get the points. And final results. One of the things that we do is we make sure that the final results are discussions between the referees and the students. Jamie, you've probably seen a lot of this firsthand. You want to talk about this?
Yeah, I would say definitely you want to practice that. So first in the documents gives you scoring sheets. So you definitely want to practice that. Like when your team gets done running, have them stay at the table with you there, and you sit there and you do the scoring sheet and say yes or no for each of the mission. And once you get done, let them look at it and let them agree with what you say, because the students are going to be the ones that are going to initial it. And that's just training them to be ownership of what's going on and what's happening in the game, and not having them turn to somebody else. Also, it's, if we turn to someone else, it will never get done with the robot game. It'll go on and on forever if everybody's got to look at the sheet. So the students at the table, the team members, it's very much the kids do the work. So that's where we're continuing that practice, where the kids are doing the work. They need to know what they are supposed to get and score. And so I've always told them, once you sign that paper, and that score doesn't show up like you thought it was, you sign what you said it's going to be, regardless of what you thought it was going to be. So go back through the field and double check and make sure that the judges get those right. And you're welcome to talk to the judge while you're in it. And that's the best case for the students to do that, is to talk with the referee and say, but I thought this would score there. And then they could, they can explain and say, well, it's not completely in, or something like that. And all that needs to happen within that 30 seconds to a minute right after a match with the students and the referee.
And I'll add, Jamie, it's not just at the end of the match too, because at the beginning of the match, before the match even starts, it is the responsibility of the students at the table to know, hey, is the table set up right? Because if there's any mistakes on the table, that is the point at which the students say, hey, ref, I think this might need to be adjusted. Can you come look at this? And if they don't do that and the table was set up wrong, that's it. That was the opportunity to correct it. So if the students don't know what the table is supposed to look like and are not able to say, oh no, I scored this because of this, then they're not going to have the best day they can.
And I guess it's important just to know use that gracious professionalism if you do have one. So if you think it's in or that, just say, Mr. or Mrs. Referee, I think I should get points for this, but you checked it no, and said, could you explain that one for me? And then they'll look at it and it's like, no, you're right. Or, well, this is why I didn't score that. And that's the conversation and how it should go. So it's just, be open to offering things as suggestions and asking questions, but don't have them be adamant that they're looking around trying to figure somebody to help argue their side. The kids should be able to ask the question and respond and talk to the judges conversationally and get it worked out that right after the match.
And if they disagree, if they still disagree with what the referee tells them, they are absolutely able to appeal to the head referee. But the head referee does have the final say in the matter. Just know that if there is a disagreement, that's fine. That happens. But the head referee does have the final say there.
And you do have the opportunity. You don't have just one chance. So you got multiple chances to run on different tables and different going against different teams or different teams are across you. But you know, you do get more time that you got chances to update and fix or know what's going to happen the next round.
And then also in the rule book, we have the score sheet that Jamie was referring to. Just some basic information here at the top, but then you've got all your missions labeled. You can circle how many points you got, fill that out in the little boxes over here. It's got some of the finer details here, and then final score. And then right here is where the referee would circle your gracious professionalism course, the score.
Drew, this might be a good place. By the end, it's hard to have we want every kid to be involved with the robot game, but you may only have 2 or 3 kids that are actually running missions. This is a great place to insert some other students to be involved in the robot game, is they could be the official scorers and you could have some referees. So your other teammates can get involved in the robot game and serve roles, but that are not necessarily touching the robot per se, but they're helping the team and working on the robot game, even though they have a different job that's not grabbing and moving the robot.
And I'll add too, that's also a great way to get the rest of the team and all the team to actually learn these rules if you're having them act as referees. If I'm having to ref the match, I have to know the rules. And I know, even kids who are friends, they really like to get one up over on each other. So if they can say, hey, you can't do that, they will not hesitate.
And it's a good teaching point for the gracious professionalism when they start getting at each other too much.
So we also have a page in the rule book that's the robot path diagram. It's actually the last page here that shows all the paths on the table and also has the different colors highlighted. So we have these thick black lines coming out from home. We have this green circle, this blue square, and these other blue lines. And these are just kind of illustrate pretty quickly where potential areas for line following might be. So if the robot is trying to use sensors to track its position on the field, these are some key places that you might look at for that. But that kind of wraps up the robot game rule document. And every team gets, is it 2 copies of this, Jamie, or just 1?
Well, you have the ThinkScape and you have the
right. I just mean the physical copies.
Yeah, I think you only get 1. I think it's 1.
Okay, so every team
was 2, but I think it was 1 this year. But
every team gets at least 1 physical copy of this book, and then there are digital versions available both in ThinkScape as well as just on the first web page. So if you need extra copies of this, they have them. It's pretty easy to find, at least digitally. And then the challenge updates are posted also online, but then we also report those to you whenever they come out. And we also try to update at least the Discord with that information too. Jamie, is there anything else you wanted to address right now?
Just Decretia, did you have any other questions?
I do. Toward the top where it says innovation project, does the whole innovation project have to fit in that slot? Right there, missions, or can it just be a part of the innovation project?
It would need to be completely in, I believe. I was trying to
the whole innovation project.
Yeah, so whatever your model is, and they say, let's see.
Usually it's a little bit easier to
see.
It
has any part touching the circle, so it doesn't have to be completely in there as long as it is touching the circle.
Because my kids, and does the innovation project model have to be made of Legos?
Yes, it has to be made of the white Lego pieces that come in bag 16, I think it is.
But
okay, because they're trying to build they're using Legos, but it's like really big. Is there a size constraint for the innovation project model?
There's not a size constraint technically, but remember, everything has to fit in that quarter circle when you launch. and it has to be under 12 inches in some direction so it fits in your inspection area. This is
And
not really meant to be something very big.
Okay, because I'm just, like I said, this is my first year with Lego League, and I'm just kind of confused
So
about the
there's-
innovation.
Right. Yeah. And we get that a lot from a lot of coaches. So the way I would describe this is you have your innovation project, which is the thing you're researching, the thing you're developing, that's part of your innovation project. And then the innovation project model is supposed to be just a little Lego model that represents what your team has been working on that is included in the robot game. So your big innovation project would obviously be whatever you present to the judges, but then
Right, so
this
that's-
is just something little that represents your innovation work that can be incorporated into the robot game.
Okay,
Yeah.
got you.
And
Does that- does that help?
and it in the project it says innovation project model, but the requirements doesn't have to match your innovation. So like their example looks like it's just 4 pieces of Lego put together. You really can just have a rectangle. And just to add, this year it's only you only got to have 2 white pieces. So you can have multicolored thing if you want to, but you got to have at least 2 Lego white pieces in it. So they changed that from the year before. And then the only size requirement that it has to be is just 4 pegs long in some
Okay.
direction.
Yeah,
So
I have a-
I wouldn't
Yeah.
recommend any, you can kind of build it to what you need it to be rather than having to build to a certain size.
Okay, and one last question, one group asked me, for the innovation project, they wanted to use like a car. They wanted to order a kit and put together a car. Is there like a rule for the innovation project, or can they just make whatever they want to make?
Yeah, in the innovation judging part, they can make, they're looking for whatever they want to make. If it's in the robot game, it has to be Lego pieces.
Okay.
But inside the innovation project, it doesn't have to be. It can be Lego if you want it to be, but it doesn't have to be. So we've built all kinds of stuff that didn't have any Lego stuff into it. So
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure, because they asked me that. Okay.
it's up to you and what the project's going to. So I've had teams that did make a lot Lego model of what they were doing for their innovation project, and I've had teams that just built something entirely different. I had some that made an app that doesn't have anything to do with Lego. So the innovation project doesn't have that Lego requirement, but the robot game has the Lego requirement.
Right. And I'll add on, especially for anybody watching this after the fact, that the innovation project is totally unrestricted. It is anything that addresses the challenge problem, and you do not bring that to the table. The innovation project model has to be made of Legos because it is part of the robot game, and it is just a representation of your innovation project that's small and easy to work with. So for anybody else
Okay.
watching after the fact, that's kind of a good way to delineate.
But excellent question. Those are some things we forget to mention or think about.
Do you have any other questions, or Jamie, do you have anything else you'd like to address that you've run into as a coach?
Nothing else to address other than like I've said again, and every time, my whole job is just to help you as a mentor. So if you have any questions, or if you want to run something by me, I don't know if we have it recorded where you can see the chat again, but I just offer, it's Jay McClung at firstinspires.org. Feel free to reach out to me and ask, and I'm happy to help and give you my thoughts and feedback and answer any questions. I'd rather you ask questions and not feel like you don't know what's going on. Even if it's you think it may be a silly question, there's somebody else has asked it before, or I probably felt it myself. So it's great. I think the biggest thing that ever happens to newer coaches and coaches is they get overwhelmed, and so I just want you to. There, I can help answer some questions, at least so that you don't feel like I don't know what to do next, or where I need to go, or am I doing this right? I think feel free to reach out, and I can help you with those questions.
All righty, no problem. I try to come every week.
Yes, you have. You've got perfect attendance.
And back to what Jamie said, it's kind of unfortunate that the time that as a coach you will probably learn the most is on the day of your first competition, which unfortunately is a little late in the game. So we try to get out in front of that as best we can and kind of help you drink from the fire hose, so to say.
Yep. And it does get better, and it gets easier.
Well, I think that's all we have. And so if you don't have any more questions, we can wrap this up tonight. I didn't have any external questions coming ahead, but I think this was useful. We hope that
I do have one, Drew. Sorry.
Oh, Jamie.
I do have one last thing. You got that practice round. Make sure you take that advantage of that practice round. The referee's going to watch. They're not scoring to just be scoring. That's your time to talk to a referee. So if you have any questions about anything, that's your practice round is the perfect time to get all that worked out. So if anything, and if it all goes wrong in your practice round, at least you know before that next round you got some time to work on it. And it's happened before where teams have had to go back and just kind of redo some stuff and sign it. We have some practice tables that they can work on during the competition, so you can sign up for times to get on there. And we've had teams that just had to drop back and punt before, so it happens. Hopefully some of these things that we're doing now alleviate that and don't have that happen as much, but definitely ask your referee questions and make sure everything is that you're all in agreement before you get to that first official match.
And as a coach, you have that opportunity with the head referee in the morning before the practice rounds even happen with the coaches meeting too. So you'll have a couple of opportunities for that during the day.
Hopefully we're trying to tackle some of that before you ever get to competition. Sorry.
Okay,
That was the last thing, Drew.
I have a better understanding now of the robot games.
Awesome. And I promise you it will help you is if you got the competition and didn't have that, it makes it a stressful day for you and the kids, and it's just stressful. So we're trying to help get out in front of that as much as we can so that everybody's on the same page before you ever get there.
And there's also a lot of matches probably recorded online. If you just Google First Lego League matches, and you can watch videos and you can kind of see how these things play out. Obviously, it will be a different table with different missions, but it will be a very similar flow to what you're going to see at a competition.
Okay, I could do that.
Now I'm done, Drew. After you started your end speech.
Yeah. Great. So Jamie and I are done now. Do you have any more questions for us?
Nope. So I guess I'll see you next Thursday.
All right. Robot programming. Here we go.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
You too.